Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Two Chiefs, One Mike podcast. I'm Scott Hughes.
And I'm Mike Hawkins, and we're back with episode number 11. We've hit July, so the weather here in Michigan and Ohio is getting hot and steamy. And we've got a guest today that I'll let Scott here introduce in a second. But you know, many agencies have had a problem with recruiting and retention. And our guest today is expert in that, but we're going to dive a little deeper. Instead of just the basic recruiting and retention, we're going to talk about military officers and how we can get them engaged in the hiring process. So, Scott, why don't you introduce our guest and we'll get started today.
Thanks for that, Mike. Yeah, so when we first launched this podcast, I got a LinkedIn message from Mike Forehand of Police Hiring Solutions, and he was talking to me about the DOD SkillBridge program. And I got to be honest with you, when I got his message and I saw the DOD SkillBridge program, I thought, what the hell is the DOD SkillBridge program? I've never heard of such a thing. So he and I hooked up on a telephone call, and he was telling me about what's available out there for law enforcement agencies in particular with respect to recruiting our awesome military vets. So I said, Mike, why don't you get on a podcast with Mike and I, and let's talk about this DOD SkillBridge program, what it can bring to agencies, because as all of us are struggling to find the best, this seems like a really great option. So Mike from Police Hiring Solutions, welcome to the Two Chiefs, One Mike podcast. Appreciate your time. Why don't you give our viewers and listeners a little background on you and kind of how Police Hiring Solutions came to be?
Sure. Thanks. Again, thanks for inviting me on the podcast. My name is Mike Forehand. I'm the owner of Police Hiring Solutions. And I started Police Hiring Solutions because I've been a recruiter for 20 years, both in the military and at Fortune 500s, building programs to help increase hiring. In 2023, I became the Police Recruitment Innovation Manager for the city of Seattle. And in that role and my exposure to other agencies nationwide, I found that a lot of the problems that big agencies have are pretty fluid throughout the entire industry. So the perspective I'm bringing to this is from not as an officer, but as someone who is steeped in talent acquisition, the science of recruiting. The reason SkillBridge presents itself as a really great program for employers is because there's about 200,000 people a year who leave the military. 80% of them don't have jobs when they leave, but they're 5 times more likely to pursue law enforcement. So that's a pretty big chunk of qualified applicants that are falling through the cracks, and no one's talking to them. Yes, sir.
Young men and women leave the military every year. 80% of them don't have a job?
Yep.
And of that, you said 5. How many? What's the percent that want to get in law enforcement?
They're 5 times more likely to pursue law enforcement than their civilian counterparts.
Really? 5 times? So okay, well then perfect. So that leads right into how does the DOD SkillBridge make these folks attractive to law enforcement, or whatever the word is I'm looking for?
Well, one of the reasons they appeal to law enforcement is because you're talking about a candidate profile where they're already physically fit, they're already background screened, they're already drug free. They're going to pass all the qualifications. So you've got a candidate pool that instead of everyone applying and weeding out through the process, they're educated, motivated, they understand chains of command, they understand rules of engagement, things of that nature. So what the Department of Defense did in 2011 was create the DOD SkillBridge program, which is designed to help transitioning service members develop skill sets they can use in the private sector. The way they do that is by they release the service member up to 180 days before they actually separate with all of their military pay and allowances, and they remain active duty, so any liability sits with the DOD. But they're allowed to leave and work with private and public sector employers to build the skill sets they need to get a job when they actually do separate. It's kind of it's an extended interview process, but you're learning about them and they're learning about you at the same time.
Now, how does an agency get involved in the SkillBridge program? Is it something you have to apply for, or is everybody eligible to get people in this program?
No, you have to apply for it, and it's actually a 2-step application process. Your organization has to apply, And because public law enforcement is a public industry, it's a lot smoother of a process to get approved. But what trips a lot of agencies up is the second half of the approval process. And that is to provide a detailed training plan of what you're going to teach these service members while they're with you. And is that an accurate balance of the time that the DOD is giving that person to you? So there's a lot of things that go wrong in that process. We've seen large agencies with a huge military presence in their backyards get in the program, hire one person, it didn't work, they shelved the program and left about 6,000 people a year in their local area without an opportunity to pursue their agency.
Let me stop you real quick, Mike.
Sure.
I want to back up just a second. So we've got hundreds of thousands of military folks leaving the military every year. 80% of them don't have a job. 5 times of those, a lot of those folks are interested in entering into law enforcement. So this program, the law enforcement agency signs up for the program, and then does the DOD. So if my agency signs up for the program, how do I have to go recruit these folks, or do those folks see that my agency's hiring or Mike's agency's hiring through like a portal, or how do they know where to go?
Okay, the answer to that question is both. When you're approved for the program, you show up on an approved partner list that service members go to and say, okay, I want to go to Michigan.
Well, that's for sure. I feel bad for Scott because I don't know if anybody want to go to Ohio, but
Lots of people. There's lots of.
Sorry, Mike. I'm going to mute him for the rest of the podcast because if you could not say the word Michigan, that would be great. If you could just
let's
pick
just say New
state.
Jersey.
There you go, New Jersey. There you go.
All right. So let's say that a service member is a year away from getting out, and they're like, "What comes next?" The 2 scariest conversations that a person in the military has is making the decision to leave the military, and usually speaking to their significant other about, "Hey, we're leaving the military," because the "what comes next" question is the first thing that's asked. With SkillBridge, this allows them to kind of plan that out ahead of time to say, this is where we're leaving, this is where we're going, this is where we're going to live, this is the job we're going to do, and this is what our income is going to look like, what our benefits are going to look like, all that kind of stuff that they're leaving behind from the military. It allows them an opportunity to find that. They apply for it. You don't have to accept everyone who applies. They go through a standardized recruiting process just like everybody else. The difference is that it's staggered in a way that accommodates their transition dates as far as when they're leaving, when they're joining service. Now, pardon me, a lot of programs that we run into will be either, I'm on the website, that's all I have to do. They're going, if I build it, they will come. This isn't a field of dreams. It's scalable to suit what an agency needs for hiring, but the amount of effort you put into it is the amount of traction you will get out of it. We recommend building things for larger agencies that have hiring deficits and huge retirement cliffs coming up. We recommend targeted outreach to specific bases in their local areas or within a couple of hours. Believe it or not, there's only 3 agencies in the entire Northeast that offer this program.
So I'm
that's north of the southern part of New York.
So I'm located between basically Cincinnati and Columbus, and I'm about 45 minutes from Dayton. I'm about an hour from the Wright Pat Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So, yes. So, and Mike is really close to, I know in Air Force, there's a base in Toledo, Ohio, which isn't too far from Detroit. So the military folks who are stationed at, I'll use my department, at Wright Pat, for example. So if they say, hey, we want to stay in this region, we want to go in law enforcement, they're within 1 year of completing the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
They log in or however they find out, excuse me, and they see that my agency is hiring for a police officer. I'm already part of the SkillBridge program. So they basically just reach out again, is like through a portal, is it through a website? And then I get their information. And then I put them through the standardized process like normal, or walk the listeners through What does it look like for the servicemen and women who are getting ready to leave? What does it look like on their
That
end?
is a really great question. So in order for a service member to be authorized to participate, they have to be a member in good standing. They can't have any disciplinary issues. They have to be on track for honorable discharge, that kind of thing. So when a service member decides that they're going to get out and they know their date, they go to their transition assistance program briefings, and this is my roadmap I'm building to get out of the military. First thing they have to do is get a pre-approval from their commanders to say, hey, sir, their commander, their supervisor runs up the chain of command. I'm leaving in a year. I would like to be considered for a SkillBridge internship. I'll call it an internship. It's iffy on whether to just call it that. Their commander says, go for it. You're good to go. Then they hit the portal website to say, okay, where are these opportunities at? From there, that is where it comes to you. They don't apply through a portal. You have to have a dedicated job for your SkillBridge program for them to apply to. At which point, you would run them through the normal process. But it's going to be a little bit different for law enforcement because you have things like academic testing that expires. If they're a year out, how long can their scores stay valid before they have to test again? However, if they're, right path being an hour away is one thing because it's not huge. But what if you have a candidate who's stationed in South Carolina who wants to come home to Hamilton Township? How are you going to make that selection process work? And we've developed some pretty clear patterns and programs to do that. But the beautiful thing about SkillBridge is that it's totally scalable to what your needs are. You may want to target people at Wright-Patterson, but you may get someone from Florida who says, hey, I want to go back home. And that is kind of the beauty of the process. You get a wider net of candidates that all fit an exceptional profile that you can pull from without
So, Mike,
a lot.
let me ask you.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question here. So you said then it's on the agency to come up with a plan of 180 days of what they're going to do. Is that correct?
Yes. But
okay, would that include a police academy for them, a detailed police academy, which would take up a big chunk of that 180 days?
Correct. That has been done in some agencies. However, in the last year, the program requirements have changed because of staffing levels. The military's staffing needs come first. If they can't afford to let somebody go for that long, they won't. The Army, for example, has instituted a plan where ranks E1 through 4 can have 120 days. Ranks E5 through E6 can have 90 days. And E7s above and officers can have 60 days.
So what happens after those days? After the 180 days, after the 120, after the 90, whatever the rank they are, what happens on 181?
They are free, clear, and civilians, and can accept whatever job you give them.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. When you said requirements, I was hoping you didn't bring them back after a certain time.
No, they're
okay.
The program has changed significantly in the last year as far as application, when you can apply, how you get approved, all that kind of stuff. That's all been pretty standardized and made more accountable for participants, like agencies who are participating. But the scheme of it is not necessarily to send them to the academy. Really well-run programs bring them in and rotate so that it's an agile program where it could be good for 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days. Assume that you don't know how long you're going to have that person train them. So what are you going to train them if you have them for 60? What are you going to train them if you have them for 90? What are you going to do with them for 120? Our recommendation is to build programs that rotate them through different departments. An evidence room. Spend some time there learning how to deal with evidence. Weekly ride-alongs to get them exposed to the local community. Or have them in traffic to observe DUI checkpoints. Obviously, you can't put service members in danger and they can't be armed. Clearly. But there's so many different aspects of law enforcement that demonstrate to that individual why a career with your agency is a good move. Law enforcement's used to people who apply and I'm going to be a patrol officer and we'll see what happens from there. Military people like to plan careers. They like to know what's going to happen this year, 3 years, 5 years out, so they can build a plan for their success.
So let me ask you this. Is the SkillBridge program more of a feeling out period between the military person and the department to see if there's a fit or a like for that position where they could walk away at that point and say, hey, this isn't for me, or I want to go somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
And no. if you bring them in, the DOD expectation is that you will hire 75% of your participants or more at the completion of their programs. So they should be screened in a way that shows you this person meets all of our expectations. They're doing everything we need them to do. If there's a problem, you're not required to hire them. If there is, however, if they decide they don't want to pursue it, you make them an offer and they decline it, doesn't count against your not hire rate. Because you
But they
made
can
the
just
offer.
decline it, though.
Right. If they decline it, that's on them.
Okay, so the
You
SkillBridge
are not
program is not a contract. It's not a conditional offer. It is a feeling out process where somebody could walk away from the department.
correct. It's a joint training program. Don't look at it as a
Interesting.
recruiting program. Look at
Interesting.
it as a joint training program.
Now, let me ask another question. So, smaller agencies or mid-sized agencies, depending on what you say, how does that work? Have you seen that work? And is there a cost to an agency to enter the SkillBridge program? Because, in smaller agencies, we're budget conscious of everything we do. Recruiting and retention, sometimes the budget is what you have in your pocket. So, is there a cost to this program?
There's not a cost to join the program. And the fact that you are not able to compensate the service members while they're in your program, they're free. It doesn't cost you anything to train them. So if you're factoring in the cost of recruiting, the average cost per hire in law enforcement is right around $6,000. With background checks, fingerprinting, the manpower it takes to be have recruiters do background checks, do fitness tests, all of that time and energy goes into those. You've got substantial cost per hire. So you want to treat these service members the same way you would anybody else and make sure that you're screening out those that would want to be in your program before you ever accept them and say, yeah, we'll accept you here. We'd like to offer you a SkillBridge position at our agency is the way that works.
So now that Chief Hawkins asked that question, I think it took me 18 minutes and 30 seconds to figure this out because I'm just a dumb cop. This is more like an internship almost while they're transitioning kind of out of the military. This is almost like, if I'm understanding you correctly, this is almost like, hey, you're still getting paid by the military. You're still in the military. We're going to give you an opportunity to kind of job shadow. We're going to move you around to different departments, and we're going to really see if this is what you like. And if it's what you think you want to do, then we either start the hiring process while you're finishing the military, or when you get out of the military, hey, come see us. You've already had an opportunity to kind of see how things are. Let's just get this ball rolling. So that's kind of how my pea brain is interpreting this. Is that a fair and accurate assessment, Mike? Or
I would say close, but no.
Story of my life. Story of my life. Close, but no.
And Ohio State, too.
In other words, thanks for taking a minute of our life. We're never going to get back. You suck, and go back to mute. Okay, sorry, Mike.
No,
go ahead.
It's a fair assumption, and I can understand where you would draw that conclusion. But you're not doing any pre-employment screening while in the program. That's already done. Let's use someone who's leaving on January 1st, 2026. They reach out to you in January of 2025 and say, I'd like to pursue a SkillBridge partnership at your agency, which is an authorized provider. You have from January of 2025 until probably November of 2025 to clear that person, make sure they're qualified to do whatever you want to do with them. Once November 2025 hits, they're going to receive orders that are detaching them to your agency or your organization to say, I'm out processing the military. Actually, let's back that up to not November, because they're leaving in January 26, which means they can start a SkillBridge program in July of 2025. Theoretically, let's just assume they get 180 days. You have from January 25 to June of 25 to make a decision on whether or not you want to admit this person into your program. Once you have accepted them, they're going to take that paperwork back. They're going to run it through the chain of command to get everything signed off. The Department of Defense is going to cut orders for them to be return out process, get their stuff packed up and moved, and they're going to show up on your doorstep with however long they have left on their service commitments. The plan and the goal of the DOD is so that they are receiving a paycheck within 2 weeks. They're in a paycheck paid environment within 2 weeks of exiting the military, because the theory behind SkillBridge is to provide just that, a bridge to employment. If you think about, let's look at freeways. You've got major freeways in Ohio. Military is going east-west. Public sector is going south-north. SkillBridge is that transition ramp between the two, so that there's constant employment and that person has a good solid foundation. And
so you said 2023, you started this when you were in Seattle. The Seattle Police Department came to you to look at this?
I started working on it for Seattle in 2023. They actually joined the program we actually got approved, I believe, in mid-2024.
Okay, so in the last year and a half, what has been the success rate that you have seen for the SkillBridge program?
Okay, great question. When I talk to the folks,
ask great questions.
A
great answer. That's what I need.
When they talk to the folks at Seattle, they received 40 qualified applicants in 3 months without any advertising, because some cities don't like to advertise their pursuing military for law enforcement for fear of upsetting local communities. Now, on the flip side of that, and one of the more outstanding models we've seen, there's a major agency that started this program, and within 10 months had 100 hired officers from bases that were several hours away. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the amount of effort and energy and resources you put into a program like this, the greater the traction you're going to get and the greater your hiring numbers.
So those larger agencies have those resources. So when you're an agency like mine or Scott's, when we are the resource, have you seen anything in agencies under 100, under 60,
Sure.
under 50? What type of return are these agencies, or are they in this program?
Yes, they are in the program. We're finding many of the programs get good initial applications and interest. However, the way that they design their program limits their success rate to people actually going through. You mentioned earlier sending people to the academy. On paper, that makes sense because, hey, I get someone for free and I can train them. I can send them to the academy. It doesn't cost me anything to put them through. The problem with that is they're not learning your agency. They're learning state agencies. You want them to use this program to build relationship and foundational understandings of your department so they understand what they are getting into and what their expectations are going to look like.
See, the fear, I think, of a small agency is I get into this program and I'm that bridge to get this person out of the military 180 days early to show them what it's like. And then they decide, yeah, I do like this. I'm going to go to that agency over there. I'm going to go to Scott's agency. So I thought originally it was we're hiring them because of the military transition and they were an employee of our agency. That's where I kind of got lost here. But like Scott's point, we have an intern right now that's at a state institution in Michigan, and he comes down a few times a week, and we have set things that we do with him, and we may end up hiring this person, right? Great person, and it seems kind of the same thing here, but they're on their own. They can decide to go wherever they want at the end of that internship.
Military members can't do that. When they agree to a SkillBridge and accept your SkillBridge, you offer them a position in your SkillBridge program and they accept it, that's all they get. They can't decide, I don't like this one, I'm going to do another one. They get one shot to do this and that's it.
But they don't. But that's not a hired position. They can accept as Scott said, the internship or the bridge to law enforcement career, but it has nothing to do with a position in the police department. You hope that the culture, what you're teaching them, brings them in and they're a good fit. Okay, that's what I wanted to check and make sure we had this because it's new to us as well. I haven't heard this before.
It's new to a lot of people. Like I said, there's 150 agencies that are currently participating. We've seen
150 150 agencies in the entire country.
Yes, Chief.
Wow. Are most of those agencies large?
They're small, medium, and large.
Okay.
It runs the gamut. There are some that are absolutely fantastic at it. I would shout out Jacksonville County Sheriff's Department in Florida. They're phenomenal. But we've also seen a lot of agencies that get into the program, apply because it's easy. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything to apply. They'll apply. They'll get through the screening vetting process. Hey, you're public sector. You're law enforcement. You're approved. Not a big deal. takes about 30 to 40 days. The issues that happen are when they design the program and it's not meeting its design qualifications. There's metrics involved. There's reporting back to the DOD. There's a certain expectation for how many interns you'll accept over a year's period based on the size of your agency. Police Hiring Solutions, that's what we do. We come in, we look at your programs, we look at the size of your agency, we look at your retirement scopes, we look at your local communities, we look at what the military community looks like in your area, and then we build a plan that fits.
That was
And
my
then
next question. I'm sorry. Sorry.
And then we teach your recruiters how to use it because, frankly, a lot of recruiters, I mean, they're officers and they're great at what they do. They're passionate, they're hardworking. But
and you also have most agencies in America, less than 20 people, 30 people max, maybe 50. Right. We don't have full-time recruiters. We don't have officers assigned to a recruiting unit. The recruiter is the SRO. The recruiter is the K-9. The recruiter is the guy that pulled you over giving you a ticket. I mean, the recruiter could be just, a beat officer.
Everyone's a recruiter.
Yeah, everybody's recruiters.
100%.
So, Mike, if folks want to learn more about the DOD SkillBridge program, where should we send them?
Well, you can go to our website, policehiringsolutions.com, and we can absolutely have a conversation and see where we can help. There's also plenty of information on the DOD website, but it is kind of in military speak, and it's a process. The important thing to know about SkillBridge is that now, we're 1st of July. The next opportunity to join this program and be accepted by the Department of Defense is in October. This is not a flip a switch and decide you want to do it. This is decide you want to do it, plan how you're going to do it, build things out so that when you get approved, because you're going to get approved, you're likely to get approved within 30 days. You want to be ready to hit the ground running because as soon as they say you're approved, your name shows up on a website, you have candidates contacting you. You got to be ready. It takes time to build everything that works with this.
So today's date that we are recording this podcast is July 1st. So you got 90 days before this next opportunity opens up. So agencies that are thinking about, entering the SkillBridge program, they want to take advantage of the phenomenal veterans. I love hiring veterans. I think veterans bring just a great work ethic to law enforcement. So I'm all about it. I got to be honest with you. I was completely foreign. Even being on this podcast right now, I have a lot of questions. I look forward to following up with you on Mike to see how you can help my agency draw from these military folks. So policehiringsolutions.com. Go there, reach out to you. You'll help build the program. You'll help ensure that we're dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing what needs to be done. And, I hope that our listeners will take advantage of this program. Let's give these veterans an opportunity that have done so much for us in this country. Mike, thanks for this quick podcast. I think this has been eye-opening. I think it's probably going to have more questions than answers, but I think that's good, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that.
And it's just one of the many things you do at Police Hiring Solutions, correct? You guys do multiple other things, but we wanted to focus on this one thing about the military veterans. Right. So they can reach out to you if they have any other questions about any other recruiting issues as well.
And all of our services are clearly outlined on our website. We look back to, there's a contact us button. We try to get back to everybody within 48 hours.
And you're on the West Coast, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm on the West Coast. I'm in Seattle. But it's not just military programs. We work on public sector outreach, community early careers for colleges. We talk about youth programs for agencies that are fully staffed but are looking at retirement cliffs.
Yeah.
Because
Mike, one question though. What do you think is the greatest hurdle in people not wanting to become the police?
That question assumes that people don't want to become police. Believe it or not, Seattle had 4,000 applicants last year, but only hired 82. So the moral of that story is that no one-size-fits-all solution to police recruiting. It is absolutely going to be driven by the local economy, the local environment, and the process that agencies use to select their candidates. We have agencies that people apply to, don't hear anything back. The first person they hear from is a background investigator who has reviewed their test scores, approved their PT test, and he's calling to schedule their personal histories and set up a polygraph. 6 months later. Well, guess what? By the time you call that person, they're not there anymore. talent moves quickly. It's a very fluid talent community. So
Awesome.
what we propose is not process the people who apply, is to target and recruit the people you want.
That's
point.
Great point. That's a really great point.
It's qualify the interested or inspire the qualified. And our thought process is that you're far better off inspiring the qualified because you have a lot less downstream problems.
All right, Mike. Well, hey, listen, we're up on the clock. Appreciate it. PoliceHiringSolutions.com. That's the place that you need to go. We'll get all your questions answered.
Mm-hmm.
This DOD SkillBridge program is a heck of an opportunity. I look forward to learning more about it myself. So Mike Forehand from Police Hiring Solutions, I want to say thanks again for coming on the Two Chiefs, One Mike podcast. Great job.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hawkins, final thoughts? Looking good there, looking very dapper in your
We try.
In your suit with no tie. Looks good, buddy.
I think this topic was fitting, right? The military vets, everything going on in the timing. We're coming up on July 4th right now. As law enforcement, I think, we try and honor our veterans, and we have a handful here, outstanding employees, but we're always wanting to honor everybody in our community and everybody around the country that's given their time and those that have given sacrifice. So we thank you. And Mike, thank you for bringing this program to us to learn about, because it was new to us the first time we had heard of it. So thanks again. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a great holiday.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Have a good day.
1, 2,